There are currently 47 cameras in the Fujifilm X lineup. And if you're just looking to dip your toes into that system, that's a lot to consider. So today I'm gonna help you narrow down your research and recommend 2 Fujifilm cameras that I think you should check out. What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony here, and welcome to the Spare Tech Room, where I try to channel the power of hyperfixation to hopefully help you make better tech choices. Now, before I tell you the 2 cameras that I recommend, I'm gonna try to break down the Fujifilm system. I could really make an hour-long video going over every single camera in the system, but I'm gonna try to go over it just broadly here. So all of the current Fuji X cameras rock an APS-C size sensor. They've also messed around with 2/3 sensors before, but the last of those cameras came out almost 10 years ago. So we're sticking with APS-C today. Now, Fuji makes mostly interchangeable lens cameras with a couple of fixed lens cameras in the mix. One of those fixed lens cameras is hella popular right now. It's the X100VI. And as dope as the X100 line is, I'm not gonna be recommending any of those cameras for your first foray into Fuji. I mean, if you're just rolling in the dough and $1,600 is nothing to you, then sure, knock yourself out. Make sure you use my link in the description box though. But really, if you're just trying to get a feel for the Fuji system, I absolutely recommend starting with an interchangeable lens camera first. It just makes the most sense. So which one should you start with? Well, you can break down the Fujifilm cameras into all different types of categories depending on what you're looking for. Of course, photos, videos, hybrid shooting, or professional work. And I'm gonna go ahead and say, if you're looking for something specifically for super high-end pro work, there are really only 3 options: the X-T5, the X-H2, and the X-H2S. And if you are a professional videographer or a high-level photographer, then why are you watching this video? You already know what you're gonna get. But for the rest of us, we don't need all those pro-level bells and whistles. And we definitely don't need that pro-level price tag. And as far as photo and video is concerned, the 2 cameras that I'm gonna recommend in this video are really solid in both categories. One is definitely a bit better than the other, but I'll explain why in just a bit. So instead of all that, I'm just gonna break down these cameras into one of 2 categories. One is a smaller camera, something that isn't necessarily gonna fit in your skinny jeans pocket, but still the smallest possible interchangeable APS-C camera that has great photo quality, solid video, and a reasonable amount of bells and whistles. And category 2 is what I'm gonna call the semi-pro category. Now, this isn't gonna be as tiny, but it is gonna have almost no compromises when it comes to photo and video quality. And it's gonna give you just about everything you could want feature-wise, shy of being a $2,000+ pro line camera. All right, so category number 1, the tiny camera. Of the current Fujifilm cameras, you've got the X Pro line with the most recent camera being the X Pro 3, and the XE line with the most recent release being the XE4. Now, unfortunately, both of these camera lines have been discontinued. Editor's note: the camera lines themselves have not been discontinued, but rather just these 2 camera models. And currently, there is no word as to when a replacement is gonna come out. Most likely, no time in 2024. Okay, bye. And the resale prices for these cameras are kind of ridiculous. So without any real ongoing support from Fuji, and since Fuji isn't announcing successors to either of these cameras, I can't really recommend them right now. Now, if you can find a killer deal on either of them, go for it. I personally prefer the XE4, but a lot of film photography buffs love the X Pro 3. So then, if not either of those 2, which small form factor Fuji camera do I recommend? And it's easy: the X-T30 Mark II. And I'll break down exactly why in just a minute, but first, my second recommendation. This one's gonna be a lot easier. There are really only 4 Fujifilm cameras that I would recommend for more higher-end video and photo production. And 3 of those are gonna be significantly more expensive, and not something I would recommend for someone who's just getting started in the Fujifilm world. So for that, I'm gonna recommend something that might just be the king of the mid-range mirrorless market, and that is the XS20. So all right, why do I recommend these 2 cameras? And what are the major differences between them? Well, I'm glad I asked. Let's start with the X-T30 II. The X-T30 II gets a lot of its DNA from the X-T4 and the XS10, but at a more budget-friendly price point. You're getting that classic Fujifilm design with the retro-inspired dials and a solid build quality. It has the look of an old film camera, but with a lot of modern conveniences. But what really sets it apart is that it rocks the same 26-megapixel X-Trans CMOS 4 sensor as a bunch of the other more expensive Fujifilm cameras. So you're gonna get the exact same picture quality for way less money. You also have the ability to record video in 4K up to 30 frames per second in F-Log, and 1080p up to 240 frames per second. So it's really no slouch when it comes to video either. Oh, and you get a bunch of Fuji's film simulations, as well as the ability to create your own simulations, so you're really not missing much there. Although, if you want to step your game up to another level, then I definitely recommend the XS20. With the XS20, you're getting everything that you get with the X-T30 II, and then some. Of course, it's got a larger build, but not by a whole lot. Really, it's just the grip that makes it stand out as bigger. And I kind of love how the grip feels in my hand, so that's kind of a pro for me. You're getting the same sensor though, this time with a few extra film simulations, and this time the ability to shoot video at up to 4K 60 frames per second in F-Log 2, which in my opinion is definitely better than the original F-Log. You get IBIS, in-body image stabilization, which is huge. Love me some IBIS. And wait for it, a flippy outie screen. That's right, you can go full selfie mode, which is kind of massive for solo content creators like me and maybe you. With the X-T30, the screen only tilts a bit up and down, which is solid for photographers, but not so much if you're trying to film yourself. You'd then have to get a separate external monitor for it, which makes the whole setup way more bulky and expensive. So if you need that ability, you kind of already know which way to go. The XS20 also has some better autofocus features, specifically vehicle and animal tracking, as well as a product showcase mode. It has an unlimited video recording limit as opposed to the 30-minute limit on the X-T30 II. You can also record at a higher bit rate if you want to, although I probably wouldn't recommend that unless you just have massive amounts of storage and a super powerful editing PC. Oh, and the battery is about twice as good, so you don't really have to carry around a bunch of spares. It's truly a better camera in a bunch of really significant ways. But those ways might not matter as much to you, and it is about $400 more expensive. So know that going into making your decision. Oh, and I should also mention the X-T30 II might be getting an upgrade at some point in 2024. So be on the lookout for an X-T40. Nothing's confirmed yet, but I think it's reasonable to assume. One last thing I should mention is that they both have the ability to work as a webcam, but in very, very different ways. I actually just did a full video breaking down how to use your Fujifilm camera as a webcam. So if you're still on the fence, that might help you decide which way to go. Either way, both of these are awesome options for anybody trying to dip their toe into the Fujifilm waters. If you want more info on either of the cameras, or if you want to pull the trigger and pick up one for yourself, I'll drop a link for each one in the description box below. Otherwise, jump on over to this video up here to learn more about their webcam abilities. Or jump into this video down here to learn about what might just be the very best camera sling for small cameras like this. All right, that's it for me. I'll see you next time in the Spare Tech Room. Be good.